Hello, dear friends. My lovely audiences, welcome to the East West Show. Jack Chow on the East West with the ICT TV. Like I said, being next to Hollywood, you have really the privilege. Privilege being that you have at any time the moment to sit face to face to greet people. And of course, speaking of great people, you will never tell how great they are, how big they are. The big names never heard of, or big names you heard like thunders. So today I have a friend visiting me. It's my pleasure and my team. And I have Mr. Lee Savage, and who is visiting here. He is the founder and the CEO of the Zenon Pictures, right? Zenon Pictures, and he also has the wonderful book, author of a wonderful book, Welcome to Death Row, and his documentary, Welcome to the Death Row, has been nominated. There was one time, what year?
No, it's Straight Outta Compton. Straight Outta Compton was nominated for Best Original Screenplay in 2016.
I see. All right. Okay. Good. Very good. So welcome, sir, to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Like I said, on my show, I want everybody to relax, starting by telling their own stories. So, well, in your case, though, if you would start this interview by telling your story. After all, the film business is a business of a story, right? So, how about we start with a story?
All right. Well, I grew up in Seattle and went to school back east. Graduated from Boston University, and for a minute was in New York, and then figured that if I was going to try to throw my lot with the film entertainment business, I would move to Los Angeles, where it was cheaper to move. And
what year was that?
1981, late fall '81.
This started with the heading to Los Angeles.
Yeah. Oh, this book. Yeah. The beginning. So the beginnings were, I bounced around. I produced Jay Leno's first live concert tape. That was in 1984. And that was my first experience with borrowing money and attempting to do a show. And it got released later on, but it sort of initiated me to the idea.
Did you get the loan paid?
I paid everybody back. It took a while, but in those early years where you're bouncing around, you think you're not doing anything. You really are. You're just not making a lot of money doing it. So I became a film editor, and I worked on a series of lower budgeted movies. And being in editing rooms, you get to see how movies are assembled. You see where the script goes wrong. You see what the director and the editors have to do sometimes to fix a story problem. I also worked as a journalist, interviewing for a local magazine, and but it was the Leno production that basically got me into the home entertainment business. And initially, so I ended up starting a company in 1986 with $17,000, and just as a wholesaler in the home entertainment market. And I had to figure out pretty quickly, it was a glorious time in the business because video stores were opening up all over the
VHS
country.
time.
Yeah. Beta.
VHS,
I started with Beta was still in vogue when I was doing it.
With a small, square one, yes.
So you're looking at this, and of course the big players are going to be Disney and the major studios, and you're trying to figure out how am I going to find a niche within this kind of growing marketplace. And so the place I settled on was to try to aggregate and license ethnic media not controlled by the major studios. And it started really with black audience, African American content, getting into business with filmmakers, African American filmmakers who owned their own negatives, had produced their own movies. And so we created this idea of a black home entertainment label. Started doing business with the store base, the Hollywood Videos and the Blockbusters and the independent store base. And eventually that morphed into Latin content. And I got into business with Mexico's biggest media company, Grupo Televisa.
Oh, I see.
And we started releasing their cut-down versions of their telenovelas into the same store base where we'd sort of, put together done our African American initiative. And we added Asian martial arts to that mix. So we were perceived as this, ethnic media company. We had one Anglo title that was with Jay Leno, and everything else is in that area. So I'm starting to see as the market begins to change. We're 15 years old and we have a nice business, but the market is changing, and digital delivery is on the rise.
Oh,
and
yes,
it's clear to me that Netflix has just started up, and it's clear to me that I need to be developing new movies. I need to be writing and developing new movies, because the space I had been in is the middleman getting the one-off title from this filmmaker and this filmmaker and this filmmaker. And so many of those people were now just selling directly to so many of the major companies that business, we'd acquired a nice library, which we still have, but I had to be writing and developing new movies. And during that time with Xenon, the rise of the company, we'd financed the first documentary that received authorization from the King Foundation on Martin Luther King. We'd done subjects like Eminem and Mahalia Jackson and reggaeton, which was the synthesis of black and Hispanic music. But the big documentary that we stepped out on was in 1998 and called Welcome to Death Row, which was about the rise and fall of Death Row Records, perhaps the most notorious record label in the history of the music business. They released 7 consecutive multi-platinum albums and seeded the foundation of Interscope, which became the most powerful music label group in the industry. So anyway, you start reading the tea leaves here and you say, I need to be developing new content. That needs to be my focus. We can still be in the distribution game. We can still distribute ourselves, the movies digitally, but the math all changed when Amazon and Netflix and those guys entered the business. And you see there's something that happens in the industry where people that are used to acquiring other people's movies suddenly find it more difficult to sell them to an HBO, a Netflix, an Amazon, because the initiatives of those companies are to create their own content. So you can see why you have to go follow that thread and say, I have to create my own content too. So I started writing original screenplays. I'd written I'd always written at night and had sort of envisioned being a screenwriter when I started in the business, but I didn't really get serious about it until 2002. And that's when I started writing the original drafts of Straight Outta Compton, which would be released years later and become the biggest music biopic in history still. Again, seeded out of that story, Straight Outta Compton was the prequel or the early part of the story of Welcome to Death Row, the rise and fall of Death Row Records. So I've sort of pivoted now into someone that develops and writes screenplays and does documentaries like the the Prop 65 doc that we're going to talk about here.
Very good.
Yeah.
Okay, my dear friend, it's a very vivid history, and I can see the zigzag road this man has been through. No wonder you're successful, because I've been there myself. I know how hard it is. So let's take a short moment out. We will be right back. Hello, dear friends, my lovely audiences. Welcome back to the show, Jack Chow on the East West Show with the ICTV. Yes, it is quite a road, quite a uphill fight. I can see my friend, Mr. Savage, has done the part I would say most people would back off at any certain given point. The other day, I was passing by a little street. Next to it, I see some of these old telephone booths, right? Very well kept. And I started telling whoever was with me, I said, see, this is used to be a whole industry. It was being replaced by cell phone within less than 3-5 years. Something now is totally forgotten history, like a wrecked ship, something like that. Now, the same thing, you made the metamorphosis yourself, right in time, right cleverly, right smartly, from the VHS days, the beta day, right, all the way to
I'll walk you through
the record, the music day, the digital day.
It goes.
That's the successful part.
Beta, VHS. CD-ROM was supposed to take over
CD-ROM
everything.
was in the middle, yes.
Boy, a lot of people lost a lot of money chasing that dream. Then it moves to DVD, and we think we're kind of at the, and then it moves to digital delivery. Not only that, you need to have a film source to be able to really effectively
Now I know why you call it death row. Now I know why you call it death row.
Well, there are any number of near-death experiences on the
know
way.
It, but now I know, right? It is a very, very, I like this rhetorical way, but it is really telling the essence of Hollywood film, Hollywood story. Lots of people see the glamour. Lots of people see like this. He was nominated by the Compton for the Academy Award for
Straight out of Compton.
Yeah, straight out of Compton, right? So, well, of course, he did his part. He paid his part, and he took his way in the fighting. I call the uphill fight. And we see lots of people get amazed about the Hollywood story. You never know. Behind the glamour, there is a death row there. That's the seriousness. And from then on, what do you do? Interesting.
Well, I think
could be you could start a class teaching them. Well,
I don't
tell
know.
them how
I think
start.
I think it's very hard to teach writing. That's my view. When I go in, a lot of my most productive work is on the weekends, and I drive into an office in where SpaceX is in Hawthorne, California, and I have no idea what I'm going to sit down and actually write that day. I have a vague idea, but it's just you just got to hope that you can feel the story that particular day and the characters, and you can, and a lot of people get blocked, and I'm enjoying a period now where I'm not blocked. So I'm working on. I have a gangster movie.
Right.
I'm writing a second draft on. I've written a story of the whole Seattle grunge music movement that happened in the late 80s and early 90s. something I've finished and are working with the record label on. You have to have a number of projects to be able to. Another one is the story of a man named El Tigre, who was the most famous businessman in Latin America for 3 decades, Mexican businessman that built up Televisa, the company I did business with for 10 years. So I'm busy that way. But as you say, and you've repeated it a few times, and it's accurate, you do feel like Sisyphus with the rock on your back going up a hill a lot of the time. And you have to take pleasure in these kind of small little successes that happen on the way.
Not only the climbing is difficult, but there are people above you who step on you.
Yeah.
Is that a fact?
Oh, of course.
That is a fact, right?
Listen, you can. They say about Hollywood, it's the only city in the world where you can die of anticipation.
Die in anticipation.
You're always waiting for
lots of anticipation.
A shoe to drop or something.
I know that you're involved with you want to be involved, or you plan to be involved with the Proposition 65, and for that we're talking about a documentary, all right? But reading your book, I found you wrote here, quote, says that says, okay, what's the hardest thing to do in the world? Then I answered I answered my own question. Number 1, curing the global poverty. Number 2, climbing the Mount Elvis. And number 3, making a great documentary film.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Number 1 question, I'll do number 2. Number 1 question, why you line them up like that? Number 2, how come you want to end up with another documentary with the Proposition 65?
Well, look, I mean, it's third on the list. I mean, curing global poverty obviously is a epic, nearly impossible thing to undertake, and I applaud anyone looking to do it. Climbing Mount Everest, I wouldn't do it. I know some people that have.
Me neither.
I grew up in Seattle with this guy, famous local guy, Jim Whittaker, who was one of the first after Sir Edmund Hillary to climb Mount Everest. So he was famous for doing that. Later, a close associate of Bobby Kennedy's. But number 3 on the list, making a great documentary film, and I think that the thing about a documentary is you can have an idea of where you're going. You can have a sense of what you want to say. But there's what you set out to do, and there's what you end up collecting.
Okay.
And that can significantly influence the way. But you're in free fall because you're going in and you're filming, and you're chasing a particular story. And oftentimes along the road, you have no idea how you're really going to get to the end. You just know that eventually you will, and you have to stay with it, and you have to keep financing the process of chasing that story. So it's very challenging for someone that needs something to happen quickly. It's not the best vocation to enter into. The reason that I was attracted to the idea of Proposition 65A is that if you read the Wall Street Journal, it's probably the most, the subject of Prop 65 is probably the most read subject in the journal right now. It's a huge issue in not only the state of California, but for businesses all over. And it's not widely known by many what it is, unless it's directly affecting you as a business person. So, you start out with this, piece of well-meaning legislation that's looking to, ensure safe drinking water, and that, people are notified of toxic chemicals being in their food or in their environment. And it just goes off this rail. It becomes this mechanism for a small cadre of lawyers to go in and exploit it for personal gain, who have no interest in drinking water or really what's in the food, other than the fact that this legislation was drafted to allow for these, for this sort of thing to happen. Now, as someone with a background in ethnic media, what was really interesting to me is the fact that these lawyers were targeting Asian and Hispanic immigrants who go into often disadvantaged areas and be the people willing to set up their own business to where no one else will. And they're being, getting a notice or being sued by these lawyers is often a death sentence for these people. And they don't necessarily know that they're not in compliance with Prop 65.
All right, my dear friend, my lovely audiences, I'm so touched when I listen to this great individual talking about his reading about Proposition 65, which I was involved quite a bit. I feel that we suddenly see some strength, suddenly see some hope. Let's take a little moment. When we come back, we talk about the strength, we talk about the hope, we talk about his wisdom. Stay with us. Hello, dear friends, lovely audiences. Welcome back to the discussion at the East-West Show. Pays attention to everything that is super important, right? And I believe looking things around me. The other day, I was having a chat with my friend Marianne Maloney. I said, this is super important. This is of a super importance to every Californian. The thing is that we do not even know what's going on. Okay, now, today in the discussion with my good friend, Mr. Lay Savage, we're talking about his film Empire, which is so far so successful. However, the long way, all right, the zigzagging way, the uphill fight, and he called it, Welcome to Death Row. Well, anyway, exaggeration or not, you will know once you're in it. Now, the point is that he picked up the subject of Proposition 65 to shoot his next documentary film. That is the part that got me, myself, impressed. To answer your question, remember when, before we start, we're talking about China, we're talking about the United States, we're talking about what exactly the audience want to see, right? My answer is that the audience wants to see something never seen
right
before.
Compelling stories that touch their lives,
Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
So if you show the landscapes of Alaska, all right, there are hundreds of them. You can do better, I know, I trust. But if you tell people, I'll show you a landscape of Alaska, well, they might not be 100% interested. Now I show you that you are on death row. So he couldn't afford not to watch. How am I get myself on death row, right? Something like that. So now, I tell my audiences, I would have to invite, of course I know, for the part of it, to educate my audiences, I would like to have my friend, Mr. Savage, to bring you his understanding of Proposition 65, why he wants getting involved, please.
Yeah, it's just this issue that touches a lot of people who run small businesses, who are, fight the same fight I did as a businessman going forward. You set up a business, you go into often a disadvantaged area, and suddenly you get hit with these lawsuits because you were in violation of some technicality that that runs afoul, some issue that runs afoul of Prop 65. A lot of the people don't even know what Proposition 65 is, the Safe Water and Toxic Chemicals Act of 1986. Just for me personally, this idea of a cadre of rogue lawyers targeting these small business people and being able to utilize a poorly drafted piece of legislation that needs a ballot initiative to be modified so that it actually makes sense. Look, we all want safe drinking water. We all want to know if there are certain chemicals in food that would be bad for us. The labeling, the process of that is, it was a well-meaning piece of legislation. It's just that now the list of chemicals has gotten up to 900.
900
and it's
more.
insane. And you're going to have coffee causes cancer on a Starbucks cup when coffee doesn't cause cancer, and you have this sort of junk science that's behind this. And you have a paralyzed scenario with the state legislature where they're that they won't even drill down and look at the nuances or the exploitation that's going on in this. And so this is why we have documentary films, to go in and shine a light on these sorts of issues.
I believe there's never a documentary targeting our legal system, targeting our legislature, who are a bunch of small group representatives who favor each other, who trade favors, who scratch each other's back.
Who very few have ever operated a business.
And none of them, very few. If I quote from Mr. Kurt Hagman, County Supervisor of San Bernardino, he says about more than 40% of legislators has never signed a payroll check in his or her life. So they never know.
How can they have any emotional connection to this issue when you get hit and you've got to pay a lawyer? You've got to pay $50,000. You've got maybe $25,000 in the bank. You've got your family employed there. And that's a death sentence to go in and have to pay that.
Yeah. Just before the show, I had a little conversation with your assistant, Susan Self.
She's the producer of the show.
She's the producer. All right, good. Oh, my God. Well, I missed a big person. All right. Okay. Anyway, but the point is, I'm talking about the point. The point being that most of the audience do not even know that. Right? It's not how much they know. They do not know, zero. Right? To my audiences, do you know that if you make a pen like this, sells for $2 or something, and then there's the cap, or there's the pin, all right? In the pin, there is a little spring here, for example. For the spring, it has coal. It has you coat it, galvanize it with say chrome. Chrome happens to be one of the chemicals listed. Yeah. So on the pen, you have to say this pen contains chrome, which is by law of California, Proposition 65, clause XYZ, a subclause XYZ, and it may cause XYZ, whatever. And then you have no place, nowhere to write the brand name of the pen.
Basically, everything in Home Depot would need a Prop 65
Yeah,
sign
exactly.
on it.
What
You know.
if this pen has 11, 10, 20, 30 of the items? You have to go with a book. The book goes along with the pen to explain how much of the chemicals is contained in this pen. Of course, I agree with you. Nobody doesn't want water, clean water, right? That was the origin. That was the origin.
The purpose of the documentary is to try to move this over towards it will neutralize the ability of these lawyers to go and exploit this, and it will improve upon what the intent of Prop 65 was in the first place.
Yes, of course, of course. This whole thing, I would say, the whole thing, the idea, if you, sir, would exploit to a way that will expose the fact that they are doing favors, because a majority of the legislators among themselves are attorneys themselves.
Are you aware of local business people that you know in the community here that have been targeted by these lawyers on Prop 65?
Of course, I do know.
I mean, that's nail shops, and it's food emporiums, and all kinds of
I do
small
know.
business people.
I do know. And a friend of mine who is selling those little bucket. The bucket has a handle. The handle is a plastic handle, right? As the content of the plastic handle, she has to declare. You are using a bucket that has a handle. The handle has a plastic piece. That piece contains whatever chemical, according to California, the law, goes again, the whole text.
You'd have to eat 186 pounds of French fries for French fries to cause cancer.
All right.
Who's going to eat 186 pounds of French fries?
Yes.
It's just way overkill.
Sure. Okay, give you rough examples, right? So now, boys deserve a restroom to their own. Girls deserve a restroom to their own, right? Okay, there are people between boys and girls, right? And we, California, make a law for them. How many of them? I still do not agree. My dear friends, we're taking a little break. We'll come back for it. And I'm 100% in support of your project. If you need me, let me know. Right? So we'll be right back.
Thank you.
My dear friends, my lovely audiences, welcome back to the East-West show, Jack Chow on the ICT TV. There are lots of projects when people are talking about. Every time when people talk about the projects, we say, well, we choose success. At the bottom of their mind, they say, who knows? Who knows? So you might end up lose everything, right? However, this is a project I can guarantee is going to be not only a success, it's going to be a huge success, tremendous success, right? To you, my audiences. Today with me is my good friend, Mr. Lee Savage. He is a film producer. He is a writer himself. He's a creator, right? He is now focusing on the subject. If you should see my show, June the 19th, we had a forum talking about California laws are strangling California, right? Strangling California. So that is the discussion talking about how strongly we are opposing California Proposition 65. He, my friend, Mr. Savage, is going to put his efforts to turn this thing into a documentary, right? I now pronounce that my prediction that is going to be a huge success. Why? Simple question. What people want to see? People want to see something never seen before. This I guarantee you've never seen before.
Yeah, we want it's the people have the next phase of this. We're talking to a lot of lawyers and people that are people that have to defend these Prop 65 suits, and we're very anxious to talk to Chinese shop owners who've been affected by this, and we'll sort of gather our initial set of information that way, and then we're going to go talk to these lawyers that that are filing these suits, and I know what I'm going to hear. I already know what I'm going to hear. Well, it's the law. We're simply enforcing the law.
Not necessarily, sir. I promise you, I know people. At least I know my people, or at least I know my audiences. They are the kind of people who have the guts to stand for what they believe is the right. Only thing you need to do to inform them, let them know what you're talking about, right? Let them know you're talking about. For example, the girl who sells the little bucket thing, she was sued. She was sued heavily, and she has to pay, right? And she had two options. One, to continue fighting until she broke whole thing, the whole business. And it was made clear to her, the attorney says, regardless of how many millions you're worth, and I'll put you down to the pennies, right? Because of the case. This is way one. Way two, pay me this XYZ dollar, $65,000.
Yeah.
And she said, okay, can I pay 560 or 56 instead of 65? Nope, 65, not a penny less. And she paid the 65. Okay, she goes. And then next thing I said, how about your bucket? Forget the bucket. I must no longer selling the bucket. So that bucket business is killed. That's how California is killed. You're killing a bucket today. You're killing another drum tomorrow.
Was she sued for lack of signage? She was just sued for lack of signage.
Just a lack of a signage.
Yeah.
Well,
they've got this sort of notice and cure scenario now.
You know, her excuse was
they have to let you. They have to give you time.
Her excuse was that bucket was imported from China. In China, there is no such a law.
Right.
All right. So we can impose California law to China internationally, and then it says it is your cup of tea to print it on the bucket yourself.
I've heard this, and they're not going out. They won't go after the Chinese manufacturer. They'll stick it to the
And what else she
retailer
was
that's
facing?
got
She had a contract to fulfill. All right. All of a sudden, no more import. She can't import now. She had to look around for local producers who can make the bucket with the with declaration on to supply to the contract, to fulfill the contract. And she has to breach the contract. For that, she was fined a big time.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's how this
But
law is hurting.
in her case, she actually had the resources to fight. Most of these people don't. Most of these, you're running a business where in many cases the whole family is working in that business.
She decided
and that's how they make it work.
She decided to capitulate only halfway. In the very beginning, she was a brave woman to fight till the very end.
See, they're not going and targeting these bigger businesses that have got sometimes they do, but the real people at risk are the smaller guys.
That's the trick. I agree.
They're doing $200,000 a year or less in business, and they might make, be marginally profitable, or after they pay themselves salaries, maybe have net income of $30,000 or something. So they've got to pay $50,000, because of a signage issue. And look, my wife goes to a nail shop in Marina del Rey. I've been in there a couple of times. There's no Prop 65 sign. So one of the reasons to do this is to try to help put it on a larger scale, to help people put the signage up so they can prevent, a catastrophe on something they don't even know about. Because, for many businesses, they just simply don't know that they have to be in compliance with the signage issue.
Who will have the brain to keep the 900 of chemicals, more than 900 chemicals, in mind? Right? Who would care about that, right?
It's just the legislation gone awry.
I say
if it's lead, there are certain things that are in food or where you need that
I say, sir,
signage.
We can invite our audience to write to us, right? To say, well, to say their support, right? Now,
paper the legislature with the
I
problem,
know that this is lots of people. The great majority of people have not heard about it. They do not know there's such a crazy of a no-brainer going on.
First time they hear about it is when they get hit with that legal letter. That's the first time they hear about it.
When they hear,
is this?
They hear a big lawsuit.
The parking garage in my where I live. 2 months ago, they finally put up a Prop 65 dangerous chemical sign. I'm sure it just mystifies people. Most people don't, but if you're in business, you know about Prop 65. If you run a business, big or small, you know about it. And that's why it's the most read.
They don't care.
That's why those articles in the Wall Street Journal are the most read. It's because this doesn't affect just businesses here in the state of California. If you're doing business in the state of California, anywhere in the U.S. or even outside the U.S., you're subject to this.
And the other day I went to a city hall. Outside the building, there is a sign. If I were a woman, I would wish to see a sign, "Welcome to the city hall," right? You know what it says? This city hall is painted with a paint or something. The paint of the city hall contains some chemicals that are according to the same text going again, that will cause birth defect, pregnancy failure, or miscarriage, or so on and so forth. And oh my God.
I could be wrong, but I think there's some caveat where public or government buildings don't need to have the signage. They're exempt or something.
This is crazy. Now, to give you an example, if you're talking about the pool, swimming pool, you use chlorine, right? Chlorine causes cancer. There's no knowledge. Why are you still using it? The whole industry still uses, whole population still uses it, right?
What we'll do is, I think, the most effective thing we can do is just shine a light on the issue and hope that smarter minds will see what's happening and this sort of exploitation that's happening, modify it so that, and then maybe there's an initiative to go around to businesses and notify them so it doesn't become this catastrophic financial thing that affects them.
Look at what Californians did. We have overturned the gas tax, right? We put Josh Newman out of the office, and now we're about to vote Proposition number 6 to vote the tax gas out. So now that we can do those, we can do this. Please be encouraged, and you get my full support, and my team, and the whole EDI. All right.
Great. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, thank you very much for having a mind, having a heart that cares about the community. Most of the artists do not do. That is the part I have to salute.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, my dear audience. We're a little over time, but it's worth it. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.